Welcome to Budos, the channel of spirituality. So I've just been reading with my ears a little bit of the Bhagavad Gita. I tried reading a bit of it in an audiobook kind of format on YouTube, but they had a lot of background music, which is like, oh, you know, it's just polluting the whole thing. I just want to hear the words. I don't. All the music in the background is slightly distracting, so I got bored of it. I'm like, getting in the way of the thing. So I just wanted to do a little video about how to read, or it's kind of like how to read suggested. I'm not prescribing this, but this is a way I find personally works. And it also has come to my attention that sometimes people are really not reading spiritual text with their minds switched on, or their intelligence engaged, you know, and also without an independence of thought going on either, or an independence of mind, an independence of intelligence. So what tends to happen, I have seen, is people will read some kind of spiritual book and they will either get sucked in immediately to the content that's in the book and identify with that, as in you'll start creating mind patterns and identities around what you've seen and read in there. So like from my own life, for example, when I first read this stuff from the Dalai Lama when I was 18, I read all this stuff. I immediately created an identity for myself as being a Buddhist. I immediately took on all the content from within that book, or a significant portion of the content, and applied it to myself as an individual ego being. So I was like, now I'm a Buddhist, now I'm a vegetarian, now I follow these precepts, and basically just created this identity persona, the Buddhist identity persona kind of thing. And then another time, same sort of thing happened when I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I read all this stuff, and I actually, first thing was the A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I read all this stuff, and then I created this second identity, which was around some kind of transcendental spiritual identity, which didn't have precepts as such. It was more of an intuition based thing, so it was kind of closer to the truth, but it still had a flavor of I am this kind of person. It is like it wasn't ego free. It was an ego of a spiritual person. So although it was kind of clearer than the previous ones, so before that, for example, it would have been sucking up material of the culture around me. So my identity was based on conditioning that came to me from other people, not from books and stuff necessarily, but from teachers and from friends, and just from what people say to you, from parents, from relatives and so on. You know, an identity image was built up, made of feelings and words and memories and thoughts and stuff. Yeah. So that's just a few examples of identities that were created from absorbing content from other people or other sources than one's deepest self, and then you kind of you're not being yourself anymore. You're playing out some form of yourself rather than just being the pristine here-ness of yourself, being right here, being yourself as you go along. You start playing out certain versions of yourself that correspond to what you've read or what you've heard, and so on. Anyway, so oh god, where was this starting? So I was listening to the Bhagavad Gita, and then I stumbled upon another reading of it, which was by a spiritual guru. I presume it was in a Hare Krishna type setting. It's just a presumption. And they were doing a recitation of it. So they were reciting the Bhagavad Gita all the way through from start to finish in English. And I see very little value in that personally. I don't see what that's going to do for you. I really think that is bad, actually. I think that's a waste of the material that is in a book like this. So it seems that there's no challenging, there's no questioning. It's just a complete removal of all intelligence from. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe the purpose of it is to completely absorb into the flow of the book and the material in the book. So it's accessing a certain state of consciousness through a more trance-like. No, I just think it's silly. I think it's just silly. It's another way of attaching into content, basically. By you just no longer responsive anymore. If you're just mechanically reciting a set of words in a book, you are no longer interpreting, understanding, absorbing the meaning of them. You're no longer questioning anything. You're no longer bringing to bear your actual self to the situation. You know, you just become like a mindless robot. So don't do that. So this video is about how to read spiritual texts. Obviously, my first suggestion is in your own way. Do as you will. Do as you want to do. Read it however you want to read it. Read it how you want to read it. Pick it up, put it down. Read your spiritual book however you wish to read it. Read it backwards, read it forwards, read it upside down. Read it on a plane, read it on a bike, read it in a tree. Read a little bit, read one word at a time, read 3 words at a time, read 1 page at a time, read 1 chapter at a time, read the whole book in one go. Every time you read it, read all the way through 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 it. Up to you, you know. So first suggestion is read in your own way, which means you are making that decision. That's a self-generated decision. I'm going to read it like this, or I started reading it like this and I found that's not working for me, so I'm going to read it like this. Or you know, I started reading a part of it, then I got bored of it, and then I couldn't be bothered with it. Then I waited 3 years. Now I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it slightly differently this time. I'm going to make sure I get halfway through it this time, or I'm going to make sure I complete the whole thing this time. And then you only get the same way through as you did the first time round. And they say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to put that down for a week, and then I'm going to pick it up at least once a week. I'm going to pick it up at least once a week. Once a week. Here's that book, and I'm going to read a page. 1 page a week because I want to get this fucking book down, right? So do it as you wish. Any spiritual book. So you know, picking a few out of the air: the Quran, the Qu'ran Sahib, the Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the my knowledge is failing me. The Power of Now, A New Earth, the Bible, the Torah, anything. You know, anything from any religion, tradition, whatever, that that you have a feeling of resonating, that you feel is something that you're drawn to it, or you just want to explore it, anything, whatever spirituality or religion book even, that you are interested in. Now, so your own way, because let's remember, you are the one who is reading it. That's obvious, but sometimes we forget. We sometimes think we're reading it for something. We're reading it to get something. We're reading it to please someone. We're reading it to attain something. But if you just bring it back, I'm reading this for me, here and now. Here I am. I'm the one reading this. I'm deciding to read this. I am the one reading this. I am bringing to bear my consciousness here. So it just really centers you. I've made this decision. I am deciding this now. Here I am. I am doing this now. Just being present as you read. So, number 1, do as you wish. Read however you want. Pick whatever book you want. Read in your own way. Now that I've given you the freedom to do whatever the hell you like, I'm going to say read it my way. Bearing in mind, it's still your decision whether you decide to read my way, or decide to read your way, or decide to read whatever way. Right? So it's always your decision. My way, I would suggest to do is slowly, basically, intentionally slowly. Or a mixture of fast and slow, fast and slow, fast and slow. But first things first, I would say intentionally slowly. Intentionally slowly. Read a spiritual book intentionally slowly. So set the intention to read a spiritual book slowly, right? And I don't mean like I am reading it. I mean like read it slowly. So a page a day or a chapter a week, so that you have a chunk of time within which, I love it when I use language effectively, you have a chunk of time within which you are going to digest and apply and understand and absorb the material that's in there. Okay. Then when I said a mixture of fast and slow, so you may wish to, for example, go all the way through it as quick as you can to begin with. Just speed read the whole damn thing. Speed read the whole Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bible, just, you know, just speed read the whole thing. Okay, so these books are long-lasting books. They have a longer-lasting value, a more enduring value, a deeper value than your average novel kind of thing. So they are worth more attention, and the attention that you give to them tends to give back to you over time. So you can, it may well be good to just read through the whole thing really as quick as you can, you know, maybe taking in a few of the ideas here and there, but getting a general overview, quick overview of what's going on in there. Like maybe not even really reading the words fully, you know, just blah, blah, blah. Okay, you just get a general sense of, okay, there's some stuff here about this, chapter headings, you know what's going on here, just kind of like really as fast as you can. You can do it that way, or really, really slowly, or a bit of both, whatever. Again, back to the first idea. Up to you. Up to you. Read how you wish. But I'm going to go back to this intentionally slowly method. So the intentionally slowly thing means you chew things over. So you read a paragraph or a page or the first sentence and you go, let's take that in. What does that mean? And then you start asking questions to the material. Or you just allow that idea to sink into your consciousness and you allow it to dislodge anything that's already in your mind, and you allow yourself to have discussions about what's there. You may want to write things, you may want to talk about it to other people. Basically what I'm saying is there's a lot of material contained within spiritual books that, so when you read a spiritual book, what it will tend to do, if you allow it to, it will challenge you to go deeper inside yourself, to make new understandings inside your brain and create new feelings inside your body. And in order for that to happen, you really have to let that happen. So you have to give it the time to have that occur for you. So what I mean is having an active relationship with your spiritual text, and a kind of dynamic relationship, active and dynamic. So there's a relationship going on. It's a happening. It's a frisky. There's the book, and here's me, and we are interacting. You know, we're learning from each other. Yeah, but so the intentionally slow way of doing things is where you don't want to miss anything, basically. You know, this thing has been, usually spiritual texts or religious books have been around for a long time, and they've endured and been popular and been widely read and spread around the world because of some value that these books hold within them. They've got something to give us, something to offer us, some understandings or some experiences or some deep wisdoms and learnings and power, you know, spiritual self-knowledge, knowledge of God, knowledge of something beyond us, and they've endured for this length of time as being a go-to place where people can feel nourished from what's in them. They've carried on for so long because of the value that's held within them. We would expect. That's what we think anyway. Could just be because we have nothing better to read. Anyway, so when you take it slow with these spiritual texts, you give yourself the space and the time to absorb stuff, to let it do its work. You know, if you've read a page of the Tao Te Ching and you don't know what the hell it means, maybe you want to read just one page over and over and over again until you actually think, okay, I've got that now, I understand that now. Then you move on to the second page, the second chapter, because there's like 82 chapters in that thing, whatever. So you read the first bit and like, do I get this or not? What the hell does this mean? You know, and if I do kind of understand what it means, does it mean anything to me? As in, I understand what it means intellectually, but do I have a resonance with that? Do I have anything to do about that? You know, does that change how I feel about something? Is that going to change what I'm going to do in this area? You know, or does that just bring a different sense of life to me? As in, does that affect the way I appreciate other people, the world, life? What? So again, what I'm saying is we're trying to kind of bring out everything that these books have to offer. And they have things to offer in the analytical realm with the changing of ideas. They have things to offer in the realm of bodily experience. If you can read a book while being attentive to how your body feels, then you'll notice that certain spiritual books actually do have, if you let them, they will have an impact on how your body feels. You might feel overwhelmed with emotions. You might feel your body system, your energy system charging up with energy. You might feel tired all of a sudden. You might feel really, really awake. You know, these spiritual books do have a certain je ne sais quoi, a power of some kind within them that is there to affect you and to change your life towards a deepening of spirit, but also other things, usually positive, come about. And sometimes you have to go through a bit of negativity which gets stirred up by these books. Sometimes reading one of these books deeply can be a profoundly disturbing experience, because it disturbs all the latent disturbances that you weren't really aware of. You read a spiritual book and you suddenly go, oh my God, I've been living a terrible life. And that's a disturbance feeling, isn't it? It's like, oh God, this book has opened me up, and I've realized that the way I've been living, the things I've been saying, everything I've been doing has been wrong and has been painful to me. And I've only just realized how painful it has actually become, because I've suddenly become aware of all that pain that I already had, and I was somehow tuning it out. You know, that's what these books can do. They can bring you to a new place of understanding in yourself, which can feel disturbing sometimes initially. Or it may even be that, for example, I've started reading the Bible, the New Testament, for the first time. I'm going to try and get all the way through this book. I've only ever come into contact with the Bible through primary school teachings and just bits and bobs that are kind of common knowledge from Christian culture, like the Nativity and Easter. You know, the big kind of things, the big events of Jesus's life, and the culture surrounding his life, and then his death as well, obviously the crucifixion and the resurrection, things like this. So I know the overall arc, the character arc of his life, and his teachings as well. You know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, love thy neighbor, things like this. So I've known of those since my childhood. But I've never actually read the Bible fully all the way through. So it's an interesting experience to actually read the words that are in the Bible as compared with the words that people who have read the Bible tend to say. And there's often vast differences between what's actually written in there and then how people interpret that and what they take that thing to mean. So it's just bizarre. Yeah, so like my point was, I can't remember. I'm reading it slowly, and my point is that something in there hit into me yesterday, which is a little phrase which said you cannot worship both God and money at the same time, something like that. And that kind of went in to me, and I thought maybe this whole Christianity thing is one of the reasons why I live a slightly impoverished life, because maybe the conditioning I was brought up in was along the lines of a Christian ethic, which overemphasized, if I dare say it, self-sacrifice, and underemphasized self-expression and getting your needs met, things like this, in an overvaluation of other people without respect to the self as well. So, and that's a particular way of skewing Christian thought, which is do unto others as you would have do unto yourself, but don't do unto yourself as you would have do unto yourself. You know, it's all about others, and there's a overvaluation of others in that paradigm, where others, it's everything about the other person, always for the other person's need, and then you realize, well, I have to see myself as also a person. I have to see myself as an other, or to the same value as another person, and I have to treat myself with compassion in the same way that I would treat another person with compassion. So do unto yourself as you would have people do unto you, and do unto others as you would have other people do unto you. And just treat everyone, including yourself, with kindness, basically. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that reading the Bible actually is starting to stir up various things from my childhood that are suddenly kind of going, yeah, well, maybe this is some of my early conditioning, because it was a heavily Bible orientated primary school. So at all our assemblies, there's always stories from the Bible all the time, stories from the Bible. And I realized I didn't actually know what was the meaning of the parable of the the wise man who builds his house on the rock, and the foolish person who builds his house on the sand. And the wise man's house, when the wind and rain comes along and tries to trash it, it stands firm. When the foolish person who's built his house on the sand, when the wind and rain and stuff comes along, his house is trashed. Now, initially, I thought, when I was a kid, I just thought, oh yeah, that's a good bit of architectural advice, you know, build your house on the rock. Makes sense. Don't build it on sand because it will wash away. So if I am ever going to build a house, I will build it on the rock and not on the sand. I took it very literally, like, and now looking through it, I'm like, well, I don't think that's actually what he was trying to say. I think obviously it was a metaphor, and I haven't really figured that out. Well, what is he trying to say? And like, what is he saying by Jesus? I'm talking about. What does Jesus even mean by the Heavenly Father? What is a Heavenly Father? Like, what does that mean, Heavenly Father? Like, heavenly. There's no description in the New Testament, for example, of heaven. What is heaven? So far, I've only read the beginning part of Matthew, right? So it just plunges me right in there. Well, I don't know what heaven is from this book so far. Heavenly. At the moment, it's kind of a word. I mean, obviously, I can conjure up images of what is this heaven? Clouds, the sky, a bearded man, you know, in robes, and maybe some fulfillment of desire. I feel like I'm playing ping pong in heaven. But there's no description of it. So really, it's just kind of a strange concept. What does heaven mean? And I know that it may well just refer to the sky. It may be a metaphor for using the sky and the qualities of the sky and the Heavenly Father. But what does Father mean? What does he mean by Father? What is it, like generator? What does he mean by Father? Because it's obviously not a physical person. Or is it a physical person? What the hell does it mean? You know? And if you don't see it through the lens of Christian interpretation, if you just read the words that are there, then it's a madness. It's actually a madness. This person apparently goes around healing all these people of leprosy and withered hands and blindness. And apparently this daughter of some king is dead, but he says, no, she's just asleep. And it's bizarre. And he's always saying random stuff as well. Like, they asked him, how come the Pharisees, oh God, no, Pharisees, someone asked him, how come John's disciples don't have to fast and Jesus's disciples don't fast? And Jesus says, well, random load of stories, a blah 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 blah. And then I'm thinking, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, well, you haven't actually answered the question there. You've just said a few random metaphors and parables. You haven't answered the question. And hardly ever do people reply to Jesus either. Like, Jesus sort of just says a lot of stuff, and then you never hear what anyone says in return. Like, he says a blah 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 blah, weird shit, random stuff, metaphor, random story, parable here, blah, blah, blah. And then you just get the impression that once Jesus finishes speaking, everyone's like, huh? Anyway, so my point is how to read spiritual texts. Read it in your own way, however you wish to. Take your time, and or go for a speed read. But what I'm saying is bring your intelligence to bear upon this. So don't just read it and believe everything that you read and go, oh, I've read the Bhagavad Gita now, and I think I know life because I remember a few sentences. Because when you really examine what have you actually learned from reading one of these spiritual texts, it may well be that your memory of it is limited. You may just get a sense of, oh, that was great, but has that changed anything? Has that had an effect on you? What has that effect been? You know, because these books are living documents in a way that you interact with them, and they appear different to you over time as well. So the first time you read something, you will get a certain sense of it. Then if you read it again at a different time after having gone through various life experiences or practiced different spiritual practices of whatever kind, meditation or chanting or swinging beads around your head and flinging them, whatever it might be, that when you come back to the book after a certain period of time, you see it and read it completely differently because you suddenly realize you'd got it all wrong to begin with, and the amount of information that you actually read was about 1% of what is actually there, which is an experience I have had with the Power of Now. In fact, the more I read the Power of Now over time, the more I realise I haven't actually read it at all. I read it again, I go, I didn't read that before. Was that there before? Nah, that wasn't there. That was not there before. And this bit, what the hell is this bit? I remember this part, but what does it mean? You know, and I've read it loads of times. So these books are like living documents. They kind of respond to you, you know, and you respond to them differently over time. So that's my little bit of stuff. I would advise against just mechanically reciting these books. I think that has limited, if any, as in, like, I think it's probably got zero value. I would suggest if you're going to recite a book as a part of a practice, that what you should do to get the most out of it is recite a very small part of it and then take that inwards into a meditation. So read a paragraph of it, or even a few sentences of this book, and then sit with that. So you take that in analytically and you take it into a feeling space, and you kind of take what has been presented there as far as it will go. So you allow that reading to stimulate mind activity, to stimulate feelings, and to take you beyond those things as well if it wants to. So you could read, for example, if you're doing this as a way of a spiritual path to read something, let's just quickly put Tao Te Ching. Alright, so let's say Chapter 1 of the Tao Te Ching. Hold on. Chapter 1, come on now. Oh. Well, I can't have Chapter 1 because I've got just random stuff that have come up. Chapter 1. Okay, I think I do have it now. Chapter 1. Tao, the way that can be spoken of, is not the constant Tao. See, I would just stop there and go, what? The way that can be spoken of is not the constant way. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the constant Tao. Tao that can be spoken of is not the constant Tao. Tao that can be spoken of. Tao that can be spoken of is not the constant Tao. Nope. I've read that millions of times. I have no idea what it means. The name that can be named is not a constant name. The name that can be named. Name can be named. A name that can be named is not a constant name. Name that can be named. Name that can be named. Name is not a constant name. Nope. Almost had something there. Nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Nameless. Without name. Nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. So I can understand this analytically in a way. He's saying that the origin of heaven and earth has no name. It is nameless. So that thing that produces heaven and earth, we cannot give it a name. I think. Okay. The named is the mother of all things. The named is the mother of all things. See, no, I'm not getting anything out of this right now. Thus, the constant void enables one to observe the true essence. The constant being enables one to see the outward manifestations. These two come paired from the same origin, but when the essence is manifested, it has a different name. This same origin is called the profound mystery. As profound the mystery as it can be, it is the gate to the essence of all life. So, I don't know, but that appears to be a pretty poor translation, if I do say so myself. That was a pretty poor translation, I think. Alright, now we've got a different translation here. The way that can be walked is not the eternal way. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of all things. Still don't know what's going on about. So you might just read through this and go, oh yeah, this is wicked. But if you want to take this deeper, then you have to spend time with it. Do it slowly. The way that can be walked, is not the eternal way. The way that can be walked is not the eternal way. Eternal way. Way, path. Let's change it to path. The path that can be walked is not the eternal path. Eternal path. Eternal, what does eternal mean? Lasting forever. Continuous. The path that can be walked is not the eternal path. Well, what that seems to be saying is that there's a difference between eternity and physicality. There's a separation between material life and heavenly life or eternal life, so that there's a separation between matter and spirit. The way that can be walked would be like what we can actually do physically is different from the eternal way or the eternal path. So the path that can be walked, let's just say this literally, you can walk along a path, like a road. You can walk along a road, and to walk along a physical road is different to walking along the eternal road of spiritually being in constant eternal connection to God or spirit or soul, Tao, life, whatever. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Name that can be named. What does it mean to name a name? To name a name. A name that can be named. You can't name a name. It's like I've got this name is name of Ross, and Ross's name is James. So the name of Ross has been named James, so it's now Ross James. I don't understand it. So you've got to take time with these things.